Hi everybody, happy Tuesday and welcome to another episode of this. So how was everybody's holiday? I hope there was no stress. I hope there were no family fights. I hope it was just a good time with lots of good food and relaxing. Cuz that's kind of how it was for me, thankfully. Um today is the last day of November. I mean, obviously, hello Christmas tree. But today is the last day of November, so I'm going to hold off probably another week to talk about holiday horror. And yes, we're going to talk about it because I love that genre of movie. But to kind of, not rush things too much, I suppose. So this week I thought I would talk about one of the werewolf movies I'd previously told you I was really looking forward to seeing. And that movie is, I don't know how to pronounce it. I guess it would just be called WER. It's the one that's spelled WER. It was made in 2013 and directed by William Brent Bell, and partially written by him, co-written by him. I know William Brent Bell from the movie The Devil Inside. It was made in 2012, I think. This was a movie I thought was okay. But WER, you know what? This was a good movie. It's doing that thing that I don't always love with monster movies where it's sort of a reimagining of what that would look like. And again, I don't always love it, but I thought the story on this was actually pretty great. I enjoyed this movie. I absolutely rewatch it. I can't always say that about a lot of movies. It's like, yeah, it wasn't a waste of my time, but I wouldn't rewatch it. I would rewatch this one. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit. So, you know, just so you know, I'm going to be talking spoilers. I'm going to be talking some of the technicalities of the movie. So if you haven't seen it and you want to see it, spoilers are coming. So go ahead and run away. It's fine. Yeah, this movie is, you watch a movie that is relying heavily on already established and old tropes, and even ones that are sort of doing a reimagining, you still get the sense that they are paying their respects to their predecessors. I definitely got that with this movie. So, what this movie is it takes place in France, and there are these horrible murders that happen. It's this family, they're camping, and you see home footage that they're taking of being out in this field, and they're camping and they're having a good time, and they're attacked, and you can see them being knocked down. And we'll come back to the whole way the film is portrayed in this way, but this little piece is definitely found footage, right? And so with found footage, there's a lot you don't necessarily see. And this is a movie that is low budget, but not indie budget. They still had a pretty hefty budget in terms of, especially horror, because you can make a low budget horror movie and make it watchable. And they had a pretty sizable budget. But something that's actually really smart in using these different ways of portraying the film, like through found footage, through body cams, through security cameras, is there's a lot you don't have to show. And that is really good for budget wise, because effects and things like that always end up costing a butt ton of money. So that's really smart, but you still get the impression, they make it come through very well, that this is a horrible, brutal attack on these people. And they end up, what they end up doing is the French police end up finding a house not far from where these people are murdered, and they arrest the man that lives there. And the man is, I just thought this was great, because I mentioned before when I was first talking about this movie, I love that it's a French werewolf movie, because the French obviously have a long history with werewolves. But what makes it even better is the man that they arrest. His name is Talon Gwynnick, and Talon is spelled Talan, not like bird feet, but Talon. And he and his mother live in this house, and they are Romanian. They are Romanian transplants to France. And that's just kind of like a little nod to really old werewolf traditions and the Wolfman. I thought that was great. So what ends up happening is they've arrested this Talon Gwynnick, and a human rights attorney, an American human rights attorney, catches wind of this, and she wants to step in because this looks like a discriminatory kind of arrest. There's not a whole lot of evidence supporting the police's insistence that Talon Gwynnick is the person who did this. So this very well-meaning woman steps in, and she and her team start really looking into what happened to this poor family. And it's awful. There is a scene where they're examining the bodies of the husband and the little boy. And that's always something with horror movies. It's sometimes a question, will they show them killing a child? Will they show gore associated with the death of a child? Most don't. So it's always kind of surprising when they do show it. And this one, it wasn't gratuitous in any way, but it was like, oh, it's kind of a shocking scene, reminiscent of Jaws. I'll just say that. If you know, you know. But what ends up happening is Talon very much is they say werewolf. At the very end, one of the doctors uses the word werewolf. The thing is the way Talon's mother, Mrs. Gwynnick, the way she sort of talks about it, and she's definitely obfuscating. She's not admitting that he did these murders. She is very much saying he's a victim in all of this. But they say it's a hereditary disease, that it's like they float porphyria for a little bit, saying it might be that. But it seems to be a hereditary condition, and it also seems to be a condition that is ruled by the cycles of the moon. Not necessarily at night, because you can see the full moon in the daytime sky, and that's something that they address in this movie, which I thought was so neat. So it turns out that he is, and he goes on a rampage and he kills all kinds of people, and then he turns someone else. And one of the doctors who's there to, help this human rights attorney, and this guy and Talon end up doing a werewolf fight in the end, and you really don't know, did they kill Talon? But there's still all these murders going on, so which one is it? So the story itself I loved. I adored it. I thought it was great. I've got some issues. The first being, so this isn't an issue. I'm just going to lay this out so you know what I'm getting to. There's not a whole lot of just regular stationary camera stuff going on, like with a normal movie, where you're just getting the camera is the omniscient third eye. You know what I mean? There's a lot of security footage. There's a lot of found footage. There's a lot of body cam footage from cops who are, trying to get to Talon. And that in itself isn't the problem. This isn't a found footage movie. This is a sort of Frankenstein taped together kind of movie with the whole montage of news media. There's a couple of those. My problem is that when these footages, the body cams and all of that, when Talon is in the presence of these cameras, the film glitches. And that doesn't sound like, that sounds like it would be neat, except it happens all throughout the goddamn movie. It's too much, and it actually starts to get annoying, especially considering I streamed this movie, and that is exactly what it looks like when my Roku glitches or when the Fire Stick glitches, and it really started getting on my nerves because, the first few times it was like, oh, what's the matter? Did the internet go out? Why is this doing this? They did it too much. It was done too much. Just let us watch the movie, please. The other thing that kind of, there's a couple more things, but the other thing is the question on lycanthropy, the question of werewolf. There is obviously, again, with the lunar cycle and stuff, that lines up with lycanthropy, but when we're talking transformation, the money shot of every werewolf movie is the transformation scene. There really isn't one. And Talon Gwynnick is played by a man named Brian Scott O'Connor. the IMDb lists this as his only acting gig. And the way he's, they play with you a little bit in the beginning, but not for long, on is this prejudicial of the police in arresting him, or is he really a werewolf? You don't know at first. They don't play with you too long. They reveal it pretty fast. But the thing is the way Talon Gwynnick looks. He's a very, very tall man, and there's a scene where the police are leading him. He's shackled and he's got his head down. It very much reminds you of the videos and the pictures that you see of police leading around serial killer Edmund Kemper, because Edmund Kemper's almost 7 feet tall. And watching him being led around is kind of startling because he's an enormous man. And so is Talon Gwynnick, enormous, enormous man, but he's very hairy. He's got these gigantic hands that are very, very hairy, and they've got these really thick, scaly yellow nails. He's got the facial hair that grows just up to his eyeballs. It's not on his forehead, but he's got long, kind of stringy hair that hangs in his face. There is something startling looking about him. And if you read the histories of the werewolf panic of history, especially in France, they used to, if you had a unibrow, somebody could say you're a werewolf and they would have put you on trial for it. So this man being kind of startlingly hairy, but not necessarily unheard of in a way. There are people who are this, who have facial hair that grows up that high. There are people with hands that hairy. My father has hairy hands. It's not something outside of nature, outside of normal. And so, you kind of see, okay, they could just be picking on this poor man. And especially since he's so mild-mannered, he's very soft-spoken. He almost never looks up to this lawyer who's trying to help him. But, we do eventually they want to do a test to see if he isn't porphyria that they're looking for. They want to do a test. Ooh, there's an eyeball thing in this movie, though. My husband has, an eyeball phobia, so, he had to cover his face during these two parts with an eyeball thing. But they're doing a test on him to try to see if he has porphyria, and it's the light test to try to induce a seizure. And what it does is it induces the lycanthropy to take over. And there is no transformation. Not really. They kind of did one, but I don't know why they did that. If they hadn't done that, it would have been fine. But there's no ears, there's no snout, there is a teeth thing, but it's very subtle. So what it does is he seems to lose all sense and goes in sort of this killing rampage, super strength, that kind of thing, but he still looks like Talon Gwynnick. There's no howling at the moon. There's just the rage, the animalistic rage of kill everything around. That's kind of what happens. So that's a thing. You see on body cam footage, he's in the upper levels of this building and they're hunting him down. They're trying to find him. And there's this shoulder blade popping thing that he does. I guess that's what we're supposed to get for a transformation. It really wasn't necessary. I wish they hadn't done that. But when the doctor, who is kind of a creepy person anyway, so when he turns, they try to make it look like this is kind of his chance for redemption, because as a person, he kind of sucks, but as a monster, he kind of helps, I guess. There's one murder that really wasn't necessary, but he kind of freaks out when he realizes that he is infected with whatever Talon Gwynnick has. And he kind of freaks out, and he shaves all the hair off his body, and there's a whole lot of arching his back and screaming at the sky. His eyes get black, and his teeth, again, very subtly get a little sharp, and it's just a whole lot of arching his back and going, "Wah!" That one was a little overdone. And then the end of the movie is another news footage, the anchors giving the news and everything, and they're interviewing this doctor who had also been infected, and he is he's not admitting that he has anything wrong with him. He's not, he is saying everything. Talon Gwynnick is, he's a murderer, but then he says, he's a werewolf. There's no other word for it. But there are, interspersed between these, there's also the all these murders are going on, but they're in like Belgium, which is, it's right there by France. It's not a super long trip, but like it would be, I live in Pennsylvania, eastern Pennsylvania, if there were murders going on in like Ohio. It's not that far away. It's a trek, but it's not that far away. Please don't come at me with numbers. This is just a for instance that I just threw off the top of my head. But so the doctor, he's been in the hospital for a while because he does get shot, he does get injured during this whole thing, because during the whole Talon and Doctor fight going on, there's a helicopter with cops in it. They're not supervising. They are absolutely trying to kill everybody because, spoiler alert, dirty cop. But this cop knew. He seems to have known that there was something up with Talon Gwynek. He seems to, like, Talon Gwynek's father, it seems, had the affliction, and this cop was, it seems, he was involved in the death of Talon Gwynek's father. And it's not just, they're monsters, let's kill them. They also wanted access to their land. And it was going to bring a whole bunch of money into this town. And this cop stood to gain a lot of money from this deal. Dirty cop, okay? That all goes to hell. The doctor ends up killing everybody in that whole scenario. But there aren't enough people left to kind of say, hey, this doctor guy, this seems to be problems. But so the fight happens, and you're made to think the doctor won. Talon Gwynek is dead. He fell in a very shallow puddle. But he's gone. So you're made to think he's dead. They never find his body, which is the thing. And they make it look very much like Talon Gwynek is on the run, and he keeps changing and going through these rampages and killing people all over Europe. But there's always the question, what about the doctor? He's been in the hospital this whole time. It couldn't have been him, right? But what about him? I don't know. So I was kind of like, I don't know, there was something unsatisfying about the ending because there was no, it was just unsatisfying because they left it so open. And usually that doesn't bother me, but in this case it kind of did. Like if they just had a quick scene of the doctor who had a creepy thing with this human rights attorney, very, very pretty young lady. If he'd showed up at our house and been like, can I come in? And, real creepy, that would have been an ending. It's just, the movie ends with him saying Talon Gwynek is a werewolf. And it's like, well, so are you. I don't know. It was a very unsatisfying ending. But overall, I thought it was a really good movie. I thought her assistant, the attorney's assistant, and I can't remember his name, I'm so sorry. He was a great guy. Like, an on-the-ball kind of guy who could get information on anybody. He has his own kind of shady past, but that's why he's so good at what he does now. I thought the whole Romanians in France thing was really great because obviously they were suffering from prejudices by their neighbors because they were outsiders. There's something to be said about that because I kind of wish they teased us a little longer about whether or not Talon Gwynek is the monster. I kind of wish they'd suss that out a little longer because it's a really long time from when they induce the monster rage in Talon, when they're trying to prove he has porphyria. There's a long time where he's on the run and they're looking for him and they're cooperating with these dirty police officers to try to get him. It could have been more storytelling in the interim, instead of the chase, there could have been more storytelling. I kind of wish they teased us a little more about that. But I mean, again, having said that, I liked this movie. I would watch it again. I'm not too mad about the lack of creature effects because, again, a movie I've talked about on here before is Late Phases. Late Phases is a fantastic, fantastic werewolf movie. Came out around the same time. I think it came out in 2014, 2015. The creatures in that movie, they look ridiculous. They look like they're wearing fuzzy pajamas and a mask that they bought at Spirit Halloween. They are not good creatures, but the movie is so good. And what I love about that movie, and what I kind of like about WER as well, is the question of who is the monster. Are you the monster, or are you just this poor Romanian immigrant that everybody's picking on because they want your land? Are you, like, in Late Phases, you don't know who the hell it is. You don't know who the hell the main monster is. There's a whole bunch of monsters in that movie. But, like in The Howling, Who's the monster? Oh, everybody's the monster? Cool, we gotta blow this place up. In this one, you still kind of get that. Is Talon actually a monster? Or does he have a genetic thing that is making people make assumptions about him that are completely unfair? In which case, he needs this human rights attorney, I wish they teased that just a little bit more. But, great movie. Totally recommend. I will be moving on to the other werewolf movies that I talked about earlier. Um, I'm waiting for the Amityville Moon to become free. You currently have to pay for it. Not really willing to pay for that movie, if I'm being honest. But when it becomes free, I will definitely watch it. Yeah, so yeah, I absolutely recommend WER. I absolutely, if I ever catch it on Blu-ray or anything, I will probably pick up a copy for myself, because I did very much like this movie. It's never going to make like my top 10, but it's definitely in the top 20. I've definitely watched enough werewolf movies to have a top 20. But yeah, a great fresh take on it. I really like the atmosphere, but I like the setting as well, because I don't know, do you ever get tired of werewolves in America, in rural America? It just feels like it's always that. And that, again, that's why I like the movie Howl, because it takes place on a train. And there's something about horror movies and train rides that go together really well. And I really like that movie. WER, yeah, top 20 easily. I really thought this was a great movie. I don't think it's like one of the greats. I don't think it enters the hallowed halls of one of the greats, but it is a sturdy, solid introduction. If that's the one you start with, you're not doing bad at all. So that'll be it for me today. Next week, it's going to be holiday horror, because I can't wait to talk about them. I can't wait to start watching them. And yeah, I hope your holidays, if you're in the States, your Thanksgiving was a good one. I hope your pants fit a little tighter and your smile comes a little easier, because it's the holiday season. Come on. And if you're not cursed to have this time of year be just the worst, and I know some people are, but if you are able to enjoy it, if you're able to take it a little slower, eat a little more, because why the hell not, then I hope you are. So I'll be back next week with holiday horror. Oh, we're definitely going to talk about Jack Frost. And that'll be it for me. Now, let's see. The remote started the video fine. Let's see how it ends it. That'll be it for me. So bye-bye. No. Oh my god. This remote. You see what I have to put up with? It blinks. One of these days, I'm going to stop using my phone. Oh my fucking god.